Hello, recently I've been working on a number of these. It's an old Philips VCR type format video cassette recorder. This one is model N1700. I was given a couple of these and then I was given another one, and I worked through several of those machines. I've got one fully working, I've got one which sort of half works but it's got a tracking problem, and then this one looked like the least promising of the whole lot. It looked like it'd been used as a spare parts bin, but do you know, it might be worth fixing. Let's see what we can do with this one. I've fitted some drive belts to this, so we've got belt for the tape counter and for the motor here, motor number M4, which switches on back tension. This is the capstan and deck motor. This is the head drum motor, and when I was installing this assembly I found that the micro switch here, the actuator to that micro switch, which is operated from the other side of the deck, this actuator was all twisted up and folded, so somebody must have taken this off at some point and got themselves into a right kerfuffle and bent the actuator. So that won't have done the machine any good, probably stopped it from working. So that might be one of the faults the machine had. Something else that strikes me as odd: there are normally a pair of brushes either side of this belt here to the capstan, and I think they provide a damping effect, but those brushes are completely missing. So either that's a production change or somebody's lost them, so that's possibly not ideal. Remember that we'd borrowed a module U230, which is the tape servo board here, or module. In other words, it drives the capstan, and that was because our other machine, that module seemed to die in operation. So let's just see if the capstan spins now. If it doesn't, then we've definitely got a duff module there, and we need to fix that before we go any further. So power the machine up. I slide this along so it thinks it has a tape and carriage in it. Press play. No capstan. Right, so we definitely have a defective U230 module, which is that one. So we're going to have to either repair it or find one from somewhere else before we can go any further with this machine. Okay, look what I found in the shed. A U230 module to replace this defective one. So let's see if by good luck the capstan now runs. Okay, that's installed. Right, so we want to see if the pinch roller and capstan rotate now. Here goes. Yes, good. So we know this is defective, and maybe we'll try and fix it one day, but right now mechanically this machine is running. Well, I can't help wonder why somebody chopped the mains lead off this. There must be a fault in here. But let's connect up the aerial lead to the TV and see if we get anything like a picture or sound. We don't have AV outputs on this one yet. Won't necessarily be tuned in accurately, but let's just see if there's anything. Oh, that's not working. That tracking control isn't connected up properly. That might be my fault from when I changed the clock. Oh, that's a bit silly. I'm not getting anything from the modulator. It might be a matter of being way off tune. It kind of looks like we're on the signal, but there's no picture. Oh, I can hear sound. Okay, it's worth cleaning the heads, sorting out what's happened to the tracking control, and maybe fitting an AV output circuit, which I haven't built yet. But, you know, it's coming along. It can be a bit hard to tune in when you haven't got a good signal, but I have to say, from what I can see, I think the heads are worn out on this machine. I'm not seeing really anything much in the way of picture, just some black streaks, which is what you tend to get when heads are worn out on an N1700. So I think that might be a problem. Well, I'll build an AV output anyway, because it'll come in handy. But I think we're going to have to change the heads on this one, and I don't know if I've got any spare heads unless I borrow the ones off machine number 2, which is the one where I had a tape path error. Maybe I could borrow the heads off that one, at least temporarily. But before I do the AV output circuit, I need to find out what's happened to this tracking control. Yes, that was my fault. I'd reassembled it incorrectly. So the tracking control should hopefully work now. But I'm still sure we won't get a picture. Yeah, no hint of a picture. Also, I've noticed, got fast forward okay, but no rewind. Oh, it's attempting it. Maybe it'll just settle in eventually, but yeah, then it's shut down. So something's jamming up on rewind. There's no picture there. That is not going to come back. Those heads are shot, I'm sure of it. Sometimes just leaving a tape playing, the heads will clean themselves up, but I don't think so in this case. We do now have rewind. I just tried a different tape and it seems a lot happier rewinding that tape. So there's another problem solved. I think we just need heads on this one. But I'll fit the video output circuit. I've got to build that up first and then we can investigate some more. Okay, I've now connected up audio and video outputs using the output buffer board that we've been using before. So now we can connect it up to the monitor and start working on, well, presumably trying to find some working video heads for it. Oh look, there's a label here. Somebody's written RF output weak. Well, that could be for the tuner side or the modulator side or the head amplifier side. Let's hope it's not the head amplifier side. I'm imagining he's talking about the tuner side, which we don't care about. Connected up now with our new AV outputs, we're getting much the same as we had with the aerial connection, which is to say some sound but not really any picture. And it looks a lot like video heads, so we need to try to find some decent video heads from somewhere. Earlier on, I mentioned I got this U230 module from a scrap machine in my store shed. This was it. I wonder if the heads are any good in this. Let's have a look. At the moment, I'm struggling to open it, which means I don't have good access to the heads. I can't take them out. So I'll have to stick a microscope in here, and we'll have a look through the microscope to see if the head tips at least look intact. But the heads look fine on the machine that doesn't give us a picture, so you can't read too much into that. But if they're smashed, then we're wasting our time here. So let's just have a look at them mechanically first. Interesting, this old junker from my shed has had at some point audio, video and S-video outputs fitted. Presumably it's a Steffenheimer's circuit in there. We'll have a look at that later. So it took me a moment to work out what was going on here. I thought that just looks a bit odd, that head. And closer examination shows that it's been clobbered at some point. I mean, it's not just dirty. It is dirty, but that's not the whole problem. It's not attached anymore. Look, can you see? That head tip is smashed. That's the green one. There's not much point looking at the red, is there? The red looks okay, but very dirty though. But with the green smashed, we're getting nowhere, so that's not going to help us at all. So we're still left struggling for spares for this thing. The heads that are in it appear to be worn because there's no image at all, and the effect I'm getting with sort of black and grey streaks is typical of completely worn out heads for this kind of machine. So I went into my junkyard and found another machine, but the heads on that one are smashed. I have gone out into my junkyard again and found another machine. Let's see what came out of that one. Some more video heads, and they're stamped 17 there. Let's look at these under the microscope, see if there's any possibility they will work. I suspect they're also worn out, but we'll have a go. And if we can't get any life out of those, then maybe we'll have to borrow the heads out of machine number 2, which is the one that I got working, but it had a tracking fault. I didn't want to have to raid the heads out of that because I wanted to fix it, but right now we just need some heads, so I might have to do that if these don't come to anything. Fortunately, they're not too hard to change, so we'll have a look at these and decide if it's worth installing them. Well, that one is the one with the green winding, and that looks absolutely perfect, that head tip. Okay, you can't often see head wear, but it's certainly not smashed. and it's nice and clean and shiny. I get a somewhat better view here on the microscope than you do on the camera, unfortunately. Let's move across to the red winding head, and again the heads look absolutely perfect, clean and shiny. So let's install those in this machine and see if there's any life from it. Okay, if you've watched my channel before, you've probably seen me change these kind of heads. So what I do is I slacken off these Allen grub screws and then pull the head out and hold this pulley in place so the belt doesn't fall off. You can get a feel for the end float here. That, I would say, is a little bit more than I normally find on these. I'd say it's a little bit too much end float. There was back in the day a tool for setting the end float, but of course we don't have any of that. So let's just slacken off these grub screws here. Then holding the pulley at the back, take our suspect head drum off and put it down carefully. It may not be defective, remember, could be a head amplifier fault. And carefully install the one we're testing, not allowing the head drum to slam into the lower drum. Okay, we have some end float on that. Let's do up these. That feels about right. I'd say it's around 0.5 millimeter of end float, maybe just over, but the other one felt like it had about 2 millimeters, which I think was a bit much. Okay, let's see if we get anything. No, much the same. But of course we still don't know if we have a fault with just both sets of heads or with head amplifier. So we're going to have to borrow the heads out of the machine that gave us a sort of a picture but had a tracking fault. Okay, so here's our machine number 2, which was the one that we got working, but we had some sort of tracking problems. I'm going to install the heads from our machine number 1 so that the pulley at the back doesn't start flopping about and causing us problems. You know, we could actually use this machine to test the heads as well, because though there was a tracking fault, there was still a picture of sorts in there, so we could test these heads on this machine if we need to. Let's fit our almost certainly good heads into our target machine. Out come our suspect ones, so these are the ones that I found in my storeroom. And let's fit what we are fairly sure are good heads, because we've seen pictures from this headset, albeit we had tracking problems. Okay, now we get to try it with almost certainly good heads. And we get nothing much. So we have some kind of head amplifier problem in this machine, not a head problem. I'm just going to try the aerial connection for a moment. No, that's right, pretty much no picture. Okay then, that being the case, let's go back to our number 2 machine, which is the one which you'll remember we had alignment problems, tracking problems with. Let's see if we get any kind of a picture from that with the heads that came out of this machine. Okay, so this is our machine where we have some sort of tape weaving problem, that the tape is winding its way up and down the tape path. And we've blamed it on back tension, and we blamed it on pinch roller, and we blamed it on all kinds of things, but we just don't know what the problem is. It could be something's got bent. Okay, here goes. Well, It kind of looks like we've got one good and one bad head on that one. Yeah, I'm saying we've got one good and one bad head there. So that's the heads that came out of the number 1 machine. Right. Okay, so there's 2 areas of interest. There's the head amplifiers that sit under the video head drum. They're rather awkward to get to. And there's the video processing circuitry here, which sits in the bottom of the machine, which is a lot easier to get to. It's so easy to swap this entire panel over that I think I'll borrow the one out of number 2 and just try that. I think the fault is more likely to be in the head amplifiers, but if we're really lucky, it'll be here. So let's borrow that. How lucky would we have to be for it to be somewhere in this? Okay, let's try that. No, of course not. Never that lucky. So let's swap these panels back where they came from, and we're going to have to look deeper into this machine. This is a preamplifier PCB taken from another N1700 from my junkyard, and it sits under the head disc in the bottom of the head drum here. Access is fairly poor. It's all soldered in, there's no connectors. You can't test anything on this when the head's in place. So we don't want to just change that. We want to do a few tests first. One is that the output from this, the RF signal, appears over on that board over here. So we'll look at that on an oscilloscope. There's no head switching signal. This is something I've learned about N1700. There's no head switching signal. It just amplifies the output of both heads all the time, which can't do much for the signal to noise ratio. So we should just see an FM envelope on there if it's working, and I'm sure we won't. The other thing I really need to check is the supply to this. There's a 6 and a 3. They're both actually 12 volt supplies, but they're called 6 and 3. The 3 is the record and the 6 is the playback voltage. Not sure which wires they appear on, but we can find those on the main board here somewhere and check that the playback voltage is there. So let's do those 2 tests first before we go as far as replacing this PCB. Okay, so I'm set up on F21 and F22, which are the connectors here, which should give us the RF waveform, and I've got roughly the correct settings on the oscilloscope here, which should give us some kind of FM envelope. So let's just start the machine up and see if we get anything. Absolutely nothing. No signal at all there. Okay, well that ties up with the fault we're seeing. So let's have a look now if we can work out if that supply voltage is in place. The one that should be 12 volts during playback, which is called supply number 6. Okay, so that's K51 here. We should have, and it says it's the +6. So that's, it means 12 volts during playback. Yes, we have 12 volts during playback. Our difficulty is going to be to test whether the signal from the head amplifier makes it to this board, and indeed whether that 12 volts makes it to the head amplifier. We can do a few simple tests by looking under the head drum, but beyond that we just have to change the board out. There's very little we can do because you can't get to anything when the machine's running. So I've got to remove the head again and put it down somewhere very safely. I'm quite nervous about that because this is the only known good head of all the ones we've been working with. And unfortunately I can't hold on to the pulley at the back, so it's just going to have to fall off, and I'll have to deal with refitting the drum belt later. So there's the pulley at the back. Right, let's put these heads somewhere very safe. So this is our suspect head amplifier. The wiring isn't very well labelled. They don't have any screen print on this, but they do have some pin numbers marked on here, and they appear to correspond with what's on the diagram. Could I get the machine to sort of lace up and try to run with no head in it? I suppose it might try to run for just a second. Maybe I could. It's not going to be much fun, but if I was to stick a meter on there, there's a lot of things to hold all at once, but maybe I can make the machine lace up and we'll just see if we get the 12 volts there. I'd really rather do that before we start pulling that difficult to replace amplifier board out. Okay, I'm sat on that line there that should be 12 volt during play, the yellow wire. Oh, this is going to be fiddly. Right, okay, so I'm going to make it try to lace up with no head drum in there. And go into play. $12 volts. Okay. That's something eliminated, isn't it? Okay, let's see if the FM envelope, which I think is this wire here, is connected to the demodulator. So that's pin, I think pin 5. Yes, 905 should go to F21. Let's just do an ohms test on that. We've set the multimeter up here, so we have pin 1 of F21 connected up to this meter. So that would be the connector that normally goes into the demodulator board, but I've got it unplugged so there's no sort of loopback circuits. And that's a blue screened wire which comes out here. That comes out here on the amplifier. Let's just check we have continuity there. Yes. So we now know we have 12 volts on here during play, and we know we have continuity from the output. So let's take a closer look at this with a microscope and see if we can see anything obviously wrong, and if not, we're going to have to fit this board, which is a bit of a pain. Let's have a look around here. So this is the bottom side of the transformer. Nothing obviously wrong with that. Should be 3 connections out from there which go to the other 3 connections from the transformer. Let's look at the amplifier board. That's an audio head. Philips did like to use audio heads for different things. That's used for detecting the position or the rotation of the upper head drum. So I'm just going to look around this board for any obvious damage. A little bit of grottiness on those relays, but visually nothing obviously destroyed. I think we're going to have to change the board over. You'll notice that the board on this machine has sort of crimped through soldered tags, whereas the one we're going to be fitting has posts which are soldered on the top, which is actually easier. So I'm going to have to cut the wires off the old board and strip them a little bit and solder them to the new one. 3 connections here, which are mostly I think associated with recording. 3 connections here, which are the connections to the rotary transformer. 3 connections here, which are, well, the important one is the output, but we also have that yellow one which is the supply for playback. The original screws from the scrap machine were slot, and these are posi-drive or something, so I'm sure they're interchangeable anyway, but I need to undo those screws first, I think. I'm going to start with, this is the RF output connection, which is the important one, then playback 12 volts and an associated ground. The transformer windings, red, green and black in that order. Remind me of that order later. Another ground, I think this is supply for record, and the input record signal. We should be able to take the board out now. Okay, that's our suspect board. it actually looks newer than the one that's going in. So the one that's come out has solder resist, and the one that is going in has no solder resist. So I suspect this isn't the non-solder resist one is probably earlier, I would have thought. Yeah, there's some version numbers there, I think. 01993 and 02002, and this one is 01992. So I think it's a very slightly earlier version, but it's going to have to go in. It's all we've got. Before I can set about fitting that though, I've got to strip these wires. That's going to be a little bit time consuming, so I'll do that off camera, and we'll come and fit it once all those have been done. Okay, the old board is removed and all the wires are ready to fit. So we've now got to remove the wires from the salvaged board and solder these on. I was debating whether I should fit the board into the machine and then solder the wires on, or solder the wires on and fit the board into the machine, and I've decided I should solder the wires on first to give myself a little bit more access space. Starting with the RF output, which is our key signal that we're missing, because that's one of the trickiest ones. There's not a lot of cable length there. Okay, we're ready to start on the other side of the board, which is where the recording signals are. Now this machine may never be used for recording ever again, but I'm still going to connect up the signals. Okay, that's the recording signals, so now we just need to do the transformer connections. Okay, the replacement board is all soldered up, so I just need to refit the screws and refit the heads, and we can see if it's helped. Okay, these are the Believe Good heads, but I've got to go into battle now with refitting the pulley on the other side and the horrible drive belt that goes around that. So I'll do that and probably swear a few times while I do so, and come back to you when it's been assembled. Okay, that's always fiddly. So you want to finish up with the drum belt rotating nicely, and the capstan belt rotating nicely, and the pin on the other side of the deck operating this micro switch properly, and then hopefully that's all back in the right place, and we're ready to test it. Something's not quite right mechanically. Drum's not spinning, something's slightly wrong there. Belt's fallen off or something. Right, I've reassembled it again. Hopefully no belts will drop off this time. I don't know what I did wrong last time, to be honest. But let's try it again. So, head drum spins okay. Let's try it. The belt's fallen off again. What am I doing wrong here? Belt trouble again. Right, that's twice now it's dropped the belt from here, or wrapped it round the drum motor actually, even though there's no good reason for it. So I must have changed something when I was working on that drum. So I'm going to see if we can have a look at the lacing with the motor running from underneath with no tape in there. I don't need to make this hard on myself. I can do that just by putting the cassette carriage in. Okay, so if it's going to drop this belt, hopefully I'll see why. Here goes. Power up. Seems okay now. Ah, it's fallen off again. Why is it doing that? And why has that only started happening since I worked on the drum? I might see if I've got another belt, fit a different belt. Okay, I've installed a slightly smaller drive belt. Let's see if that helps. It's making some funny noises because this is sloppy, but yeah, that seems to be working. Alright, let's try it. So that's the belt I fitted that time. Seems a better fit. Here goes. Still no picture. No, something has changed. I have some FM envelope, and look, as I adjust the tracking, it comes and goes in a sort of tracking sort of way. I'd say that's a good FM envelope there with the tracking at that point. Now, I wasn't getting that before. So now we're looking later on, possibly into this module again. So, you know, it might just be that even though we have the same symptoms, we don't have the same cause. And I was seeing something slightly different actually since I've changed that module. I was sometimes seeing a hint of a picture on the screen, like a little bit of chroma. No, not much luma, but a bit of chroma. So I wasn't getting that before. So maybe we are making a bit of progress. Right, let's try it with this module. Still no picture, which implies the problem is after this. Let's see if we can see video output from here then. So U734 FM demodulator, luminance outputs on pin 1. Let's see if we can see anything with the scope. Yeah, that looks like a video signal. We're making progress. So we have something coming out of the demodulator, but no picture on the screen. Oh well, we should be able to get there. Just for a moment, I will refit this machine's original FM demodulator. So our problem is presumably on this panel now. I'm just going to check for composite video at the input to the modulator, which also feeds out to my video amplifier circuit. No, some weak sync pulses, and that's all there. I tell you what I just did momentarily a moment ago was desolder my video output circuit in case there was a fault with that, and looked again for something coming out the RF modulator, and there's nothing. And I again looked with the oscilloscope at the input to the modulator, and there was the same, some weak sync pulses. So we need to look at this panel here, signal prep. Unfortunately the diagrams seem less than helpful, so we're going to be a little bit on our own. The diagrams may not be for this version, I don't know, but it just don't seem to line up with what's actually here. So, but fortunately it's fairly well labelled. So we'll look for CVBS out, and we'll look for luma in and chroma, and we'll see if we can make some sense of what's going on this signal prep board. Okay, so we're on the AV input, just in case something amazing happens. So we'll look at CVBS out here, and it'll be the same thing, just those weak sync pulses. Okay, so you can just about see these weak sync pulses there, but nothing else really. Luma in we have here on one of these pins. You see, that looks like a video signal to me. Luma neg out, not sure what that's supposed to be, but that looks right. So do you know what, I think we're going to try swapping out U531. Okay, let's borrow that one from the machine that we think electrically works. Okay, that's U531 fitted from the machine that gives us some kind of picture. Let's see if we get anything. No. Let's look for some signals. That really does look like a good picture. and CVBS out. Just some weak sync pulses. I wonder if the modulator is ruining the signal. Maybe I should disconnect the signal to the modulator and take it only to my video output circuit. Let's do that. No, isolating the modulator does not fix the problem. Maybe you have a supply problem to this signal prep board. Okay, I've patched out where I cut the track to the modulator, but what I'm going to do while I've got my video input output circuit disconnected is patching that to the luma in of the signal preparation. Could be the wrong signal level and all sorts, but it's just worth having a look to see if I get possibly something resembling a black and white picture on the TV. If I do, it really does demonstrate that we do have a good, the video recorder's working up to this point. So let's try that. Yes. There we do. A good black and white picture. Okay, there's tracking issues with this tape, always has been. But that shows that we're definitely onto the right thing, doesn't it? We're in the right area. It's just this signal preparation which combines the luma and chroma and outputs composite video is not. Let's check that we have 12 volts on that signal prep U531. Yes, we do. So it looks like we have good signals going into that board, but nothing coming out of it, even though the output's not feeding into a short circuit, and we know that board itself is okay. That's illogical, isn't it? I think I may have worked out what the problem is. So it doesn't matter which of these signal preparation boards I fit, I don't get composite video out. So maybe it's something to do with the board I'm plugging it into. Oh dear. Have a look at that. There's a big sludgy mess down there. Looks like something spilled into where the socket sits on the board. Is that rust or heaven only knows what? So whatever this is presumably conductive. It's rust, isn't it? And that's why we're not getting a signal out, or an extremely weak signal. So that's going to be a bit fiddly, because I'm going to have to take the socket off the board and clean the board up and maybe fit a new socket, or one from a scrap machine. But at least now we, I think, know what the problem is. Okay, I've desoldered it from underneath. Now I need to pull it out, which is going to be a bit fiddly because I mustn't touch this coil, which I think is a delay line. Very fine windings on that. So yeah, it's going to be a bit hard to pull this out. Under normal circumstances, of course, these things would be fitted and left in for the entire life of the machine. It's unusual to have to service these sockets. I don't suppose Philips imagined that people would have to. Well, I must have desoldered that pretty good. So there's our socket, and the board is covered in rust. And there's all the gunge on the board. So I need to clean up the board and clean up or replace the socket. This is what the socket looks like now it's come out of the ultrasonic tank. And I'd say that's fine. I don't think we're going to have any more problems with that. So I can fit that back to the circuit board, which I've also cleaned up. An awful lot of gunge came off that. Right, that's the can fitted. I almost feel like I've got to the point that nothing's going to make this work, so I don't actually hold out that much hope. Still no picture, of course not. I'm considering swapping over this entire panel with the other machine. At least it would rule out everything on here, including the board itself. I may be onto something. And I almost missed it because it's almost off the edge of the diagram. Have a look at this. There's a inverted luminance output signal comes out of one of the pins, It comes out of pin 11 of this module, and it goes via a couple of resistors and a delay line. Remember I mentioned a delay line earlier? And then it goes back into the module and it's used for further processing. So let's have a look at that inverted video signal as it goes through the system. So here it is, it's marked loom neg out, and there's even a test point for it. So we'll look at that signal on the scope and see if it looks like an inverted luminance signal. Yes, it sort of does, doesn't it? Looks like an upside down video signal. Okay, and that goes via a couple of resistors and a delay line, and then should go back into the module on pin 5. But there's nothing there. So what, 2 resistors and a delay line? Well, that shouldn't take long to find, should it? Well, they're not very well labelled, but I did find the delay line. D501. It's got a ground connection, an in and an out. So here's our in, so that's our inverted video signal. And here's our out. Nothing. That's interesting, isn't it? Well, what is a delay line? This delay line is just a coil. So what would a coil be? What resistance would we expect from a coil? Somewhere in the order of a few tens to a few hundreds of ohms, something like that. So let's just have a look at the resistance of that coil from one end to the other, not being distracted by the ground pin. This is the input here, and this is the output. Bear in mind it's in circuit at the moment, and we're getting about 10k. Seems a bit high. So I've just nipped out to my shed and collected a scrap panel, and let's have a look at the resistance of the delay line on this one. Here it is again. So this is the ground connection, this is the input, and this is the output. 180 ohms. That looks more like it. So our delay line, this component here, is open circuit on this one. Perhaps all that corrosion on the board ate into the bottom of it. Speaking of the corrosion, there's a capacitor here, possibly a bit distressed on this one. Let's take the IF can out. Oh, there's a bit more rust there, we're not using the IF can. But look, I think we can see some corrosion from that capacitor. In fact, this is one of those resistors at the end of the delay line here, and this capacitor could be distressed. So let's replace that as well. Here's about 180 odd ohms. That looks more like it. Let's fit that one. I've already replaced the capacitor as well. The capacitor was actually fine, but it was worth cleaning up around the board. And just checking now that we see that low resistance on the board. Yep, 183 ohms. Good. Okay, video connector is all connected up. Get the monitor switched on and see what we can see. At long last we have a picture. But no colour. Oh my lord. We still have problems. So, okay, we have tracking problems, but that's probably neither here nor there. But bigger problem, no colour. Oh, it doesn't give up without a fight, this machine, does it? Oh, I'd missed the panel out. I don't think this matters because this is IF, so this is for the tuner side. But let's just fit that. We've got a head clog as well now, and still no colour. No. There we are. The head clog's cleared, but so the picture's not too bad, apart from the fact it's black and white and a bit dark. But that would be just the gain on my video output, probably. Okay, we have the brightness set correctly now, so we just have a good black and white picture. Well, I've been busy with the oscilloscope, looking at the chroma signals. So I found the chroma signal coming from the bottom PCB into the top looks completely valid, and just to be on the safe side I swapped out this entire bottom board again, and it made no difference. So the problem appears to be up here on the top. And another bit of panel swapping, I was able to swap the chroma panel. There's a chroma module here and 515 next to it, which is associated with the chroma, and I also swapped 531 again, which was the one that's the pre-modulator. Swapped all those out and no improvement. I did momentarily see a flash of colour, which proves kinda that there's nothing like electrically disconnected, but we have something out of spec somewhere. And some of the colour processing is done on the main board here, which is a bit unfortunate because you can't just unplug that. I've checked for some signals. I've checked that the 4.43 megahertz signal crystal looks right, and there's a 562.5 kilohertz signal that looks okay. So I'm at a loss. There's something wrong with the color processing on this board which is beyond my ability to fix, and it could be due to contamination because we've seen various contamination on this board already. So I didn't want to do this, but I'm going to have to swap, I think, this entire panel over with the one from the number 2 machine, which is the one with the tracking fault. I didn't want to do that because I didn't want to break up that machine, and I didn't want to do it because I have to desolder all my wiring to the video output, but I'm left with no choice. So I'll swap the entire panel, and I believe the colour should come back. Let's do that then. That means unplugging 10 wires in total, 10 connectors from the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and the tricky one is a single wire down here, 10. Right, so that should be ready to come out, but for the fact I've got my wires soldered here, so I've got to desolder those. Okay, let's swap that over with the one from number 2 machine. Okay, I've swapped over the whole board, including all the chroma processing. Didn't want to do that, but had to really. Right, let's test it. Nothing at all now. What have I done wrong? I missed out this board, didn't I? Signal prep for modulator, which is also provides us with the composite video. So without that, we don't get any composite video. Try again. A very dark picture. Do you know what? It looks like the same problem. It looks like that. It looks like the delay line on this one has failed as well. Maybe it got knocked about 10k ohms. Alright then, so we've got another open circuit delay line, so I'm going to have to swap that across again. Or find another one from another junk machine maybe. Thing is, this one did work some time ago because we did get a picture from that machine, so I must have knocked this around a bit when testing the resistance, trying to debug my problems from the other machine. Yeah, that's open circuit. So they must be very, very fragile. Oh dear. Yes, indeed, it was my clumsiness. I think I broke the connection at the very, very end here. Oh, well, I might be able to fix that. The wire is kind of glued down, but I may be able to pull up enough that I can solder the wire back on again, even if I have to take one turn off. Cool, it's really thin wire. You've no idea. That's the trouble with the microscope. It makes things look doable, but they're not really that doable. I don't think I can take a whole turn off because of where it's glued down. I've resoldered it, I think. And what resistance do I get now? $190 odd ohms. Oh good. So I can refit that. That takes component level repair to a new level, doesn't it? Okay, we have about 190 ohms or something on there. We could try again. Now we have a head clog. And I still don't think we have any colour. That's impossible, surely. But with a head clog it's a bit hard to tell. Oh, there we go. Aha, we have picture and sound in colour. Good heavens. Do we have a fully working machine? Well, yes, but rewind is a bit sluggish, so that needs a little work, I think. Something that's odd about this machine, when you press eject, it doesn't switch machine off. On most machines I've come across, that when you press that button, it does this off first, and then does the eject. So maybe a switch fault, or it may be due to this machine being a different version and not supporting switching off with that button. Let's try the N1700 heads that we found in the storeroom to see if they're any good. If they are, they can go into the number 2 machine. I suspect they're not, but let's give them a whirl because it's reasonably easy to swap them over. Right, what I've just done is installed the heads from the storeroom, the spare ones I found, to see if they might be serviceable, in which case we might still have enough bits to make up number 2 machine. But without another set of heads, we just can't finish that machine. Let's give it a whirl. I'd be very surprised if these heads are any good. Yeah, these heads have had it. Looks like one head is just about functioning and the other's not at all. So they are of no help to us in getting the number 2 machine back into service. Alright, let's refit the decent heads. Okay, we have the known good heads reinstalled in this machine. So apart from slightly weak rewind and a bad clock display, this machine is a runner. I'll try some Platinum Clean roller rejuvenator on this rewind pulley here, and also clean up the surfaces it bears against to see if we can improve the rewind torque a little bit. There's quite a lot of loose material come off that. It might help. Right, having rejuvenated the rewind and fast forward pulley, let's see if it rewinds any faster. Yes, that seems to be working okay. Great, we've brought one more N1700 back into the world, but I am running short of video heads for these now. Hope you've enjoyed what we've done here today. It has taken us rather a long time. I'll do plenty more content on audio and video technology in the near future. Bye for now. So this is the panel that only gave black and white, but has a good delay line. This is a panel from a scrap machine. We don't know if it's any good, but it certainly needs a delay line. So I'm going to swap the delay line across from there to here, and then install that into system number 2, which will then be otherwise complete, apart from it needs some video heads. And this, of course, is a bad delay line.
Colin, do you think VHS is any good?
No, I've always thought beta was a vastly better format. I couldn't see the point of VHS, really.
Oh well, you won't want this box from VHS's Life then.
VHS's Life?